Hi folks, I'm Mark with Proline Range Hoods, and today we're in our warehouse and we built a demo ceiling so that we can show you how to properly support and install your island range hood so that you get years of trouble-free service with no vibration. Now, one of the most important things when you install your island range hood is you need to make sure that you have the support necessary to support 3 to 4 times the weight of the hood. Now, when you install your range hood in your kitchen, you're either going to have attic space or you're going to have an additional floor above that.
We encourage all viewers to watch this video in its entirety to gain a full understanding of all of the options and requirements for installing additional weight-bearing support in your ceiling for your island mount range hood. If you have already watched it, you may click on your type of ceiling access to skip directly to that part of the video. This section of the video will cover installations with full access to the ceiling area above the range hood that are using a threaded rod support system. Remember that any additional ceiling support must be able to hold 3 times the weight of your range hood.
So now we're going to show you how to do an attic installation, and for me, I don't like going up in the attic very much, so I try and do everything from the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ceiling bracket out. I've marked where my, and we'll just pick a point, we'll just call this my center. I'm going to center it exactly so that there's no support, so that I have to put in all of the support that I need. Now for this example, we're going to use a round mounting bracket. This is going to be for our 440 model. But the same principle would apply if you had a square or a rectangular bracket. So you can see my mounting points. I've got a square mounting point. Now my framing up here is on 24-inch centers, and this is not 24-inch. So that you can see I'm going to have to provide 100% of the blocking for this hood to mount this hood correctly. Now the first thing that I always do, because I need to do this otherwise I screw it up, is I marked the center of where I need to mount. This is where my controls are going to go. In fact, a lot of times I will write controls here because I'll screw it up. So the next thing I'll do is I will make a line here and here at the center, and then I will draw a black line across there that I'll match up to my ceiling in just a second. Now, I've already identified the center point where my hood is going to install. Now you can do this if you're doing a retrofit, if you're installing this and you already have your stove. You just want to identify the center of where you want your range hood to be, and then either use a laser or a plumb line. Now on a flat ceiling it's pretty easy, especially if you're square to the wall, but if you are not square or if your range hood is offset, then the laser helps out a lot because you'll need to draw a line that you'll eventually line these up with. I've drawn my line that runs through the center of where I'm going to mount my hole, so my center mounting point needs to be right here. Now one of the things that I'm going to do first is I'm going to measure my distance. This mounting plate is 13 3/4 wide, so that I know at my mounting points I'm 8 inches. So what I'm going to do is measure off the back of my wall. We're going to pretend that this is square. So I know that at the center point I'm 13, what was that measurement? 13 3/4. So I'm going to need to be about, we'll call it 6.5, because I don't want to have to repaint. So I'll be at 6.5 and 13. And then off of my back, I'm going to measure my point here is 24 from the back wall. Then I'm going to take a square and I'm going to draw my line across exactly where I'm going to match that up. So now you can see, and it's good, I have my controls marked. Now you can see, and what I'll do is I'll mark the center here in just a second, but you can see what I've done is I've lined up my line with my line all the way through and my controls. So my control is centered right here. It's centered on my point, and there's where my cut is going to be. Now I'm going to be outside of that a little bit. Here's my mounting points, so I'll identify those. Okay, so now I know exactly how much space I have to work with and how much of the ceiling I can destroy without having to repaint. Now the way that we're going to do this, because we have attic space above this, is we are going to identify where we want our support points, and we're going to use some threaded rod. We're going to use a 2x4 flat like this on its side, and we're going to drill holes. We're going to drill some new mounting holes here, and we're going to use threaded rod. Then this 2x4 can go up inside the hole and sit like this, and the threaded rod will come down. Now the 2x4 will span the length of our joists right here so that we have the maximum amount of support in the right points exactly where we need it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a really quick circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, so the way that I normally do that is here I'm going to identify how big I'm just going to note how big my circle can be. From corner to corner on my support points inside my circle, so that I'm not going to destroy any sheetrock outside that won't be hidden by the chimney, needs to be about 12 inches. The base of this tape is, they're usually 3 inches. I don't know how big this one is. Yep, it's 3 inches. So I'm going to set the tape, I'll lock it in at 3 inches. I'm going to use this corner right in my center, and then what I'm going to do is just draw a circle. So that's where I'm going to make my cut. For the purposes of this demonstration, we already know that there's no plumbing, there's no electrical, there's nothing up inside on the other side of this sheetrock that we can hurt. Yours is going to be different. So what I'm going to recommend, the first thing you need to do is cut a small hole right in the center so that you can feel. And that'll help you identify where your support points are and maybe some of the other things that you have to avoid. Because you don't just want to start cutting. You may have plumbing, you might have electrical, you may have something else laying right on top of the sheetrock. In our example, we don't have anything, so we know we're clear to cut. And now we've cut our hole, we've got our opening. We also have our markings where our supports need to be, our center line. And so with our center line and with our 4 support markings, we know exactly where we need to have the blocking. Now once we have the hole, we get to reach up in here, we get to see what's here. So we've identified and we say, oh, okay, these are TJIs or engineered trusses. And so we've got a little lip there that we can use for our support. But in this case, we're going to use a threaded rod support. So the whole idea here, now that I have this nice big space and I've identified the distance, I stuck a tape measure up here, I know how far my spacing is, I've cut my supports a little bit bigger. So eventually what I'm going to do once I have holes drilled is this board's going to go up here like this, over here like this, and then the threaded rod is going to come down on my support points right here, and it's going to be incredibly strong. Now the reason I like this method with the threaded rod is because this is really adjustable. So let's say I'm off by a 1/4 inch, bingo, I just pop it right over. Let's say I need to move this way by a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch or even up to an inch. This makes it really easy to adjust, and I don't have to go back and re-drill holes, remount brackets, things like that. Once I know exactly where it is, I tighten up my threaded rods and everything cinches up tight. But we'll show you a couple different ways to do this. We know exactly where our support needs to be here. So we're going to measure over until we hit the joist, and that is 8 inches. Now here, I'm going to measure over until I hit it, and that's 6.5. So I need to be a little bit closer to this side. So now what I'm going to do is identify where my support points need to be. The first thing you're going to notice here is that there's no holes around here. We're going to drill new holes, so don't worry about that. Just a simple high-speed steel bit. Any bit will do, just make sure it's sharp. It's pretty easy to drill through. So we're going to drill some new holes, and we're going to mark exactly where our supports need to be. So again, coming off of this side, I know I need to be at 6.5, plus I need to go over my joist, so I'm going to mark it at about 9. I've identified where my right side hole needs to be. So now I'm going to drill the holes in my plate, and you can see what I want to do, because my controls are up here where I've marked my controls, my supports have to go this way. So what I want to try and do is get 2 holes. I'd like one here. My threaded rod will be right here. But I also want to put a grabber screw in for additional support. You can never have too many screws. Let me just drill these. Now you can see what I've done here. I've drilled the 4 holes, and these are going to be for our threaded rod. Now this is, I think it's 1/4, 5/16 threaded rod. It's available at Home Depot. This is, what, 3 feet long, and it was $3, so $1 a foot. Anyway, we're going to cut it in just a second to the right length, but you can see that what we're going to do, the whole idea here, is that this is going to go up, and then our 2x4 is going to go here. So we're going to need to figure out how long we need to make these in just a moment. but I've drilled the 4 holes, so my support will go this way. This will pick up my 2x4, and then when I come back and block it in, this will be where I cinch up my block and do my final screws once I have the position. So now I'll drill those holes. We'll use a smaller bit because those are going to be for some grabber screws. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where we need our holes in our support. So we're going to space these apart just as if they were in the ceiling. And as you recall, I've got my mark here where my right hole needs to be. I've got my controls marked there. We want it to be about in the center. This is one of those cases where it doesn't have to be perfect. Here's where we want to double check, because this bolt pattern, you can change it if you make a mistake here. It's no big deal because generally it doesn't show, but we want to try and get it right the first time. So now I'll go ahead and mark the holes where they need to be, and then I'll finish drilling them in just a second. Okay, so now we're going to calculate how long we need to cut our threaded rod. Now we've drilled our holes in our 2x4 according to the bolt pattern. This is the side that needs to be over on the right side. So this is going to be down. The threaded rod will come up through the hole that we just drilled, and then it will rest on top, TJIs. So we have a fender washer here to distribute the weight, keep the nut from pulling through. It's going to hang like this. And so then our bracket is going to come up here, and we're going to sandwich everything with some supports in between to help us carry the weight. So we need our threaded rod to be about that long. So just make a mark here, and this is where we'll cut them. Now for this installation, we have 2 3-foot pieces of threaded rod. Now this is 5/16 threaded rod. You can use a 1/4, 3/8, whatever size you feel is appropriate for the strength or the weight of the hood. We have 8 fender washers, and we have plenty of nuts that we can use to fasten this all together. So these all came from Home Depot. Total cost for everything was about $7, $8. We know how long we need to make the threaded rod. We've allowed for our top 2x4, we've allowed to come through the sheetrock. We need to be in here. We've decided that it needs to be 16 inches. And I'll measure up 16 from this side. Now the reason I do it this way is because both of the ends on these are good. If you've ever tried threading a nut up a threaded rod that has screwed up threads, it's no fun. Now, if you don't have a hacksaw, if you don't have bolt cutters, if you don't have a file or a grinder or something that you can cut these off with, have them do it at the hardware store for you. They can cut them off. And we're just going to use a pair of bolt cutters to cut them off. Okay, now one negative thing about the bolt cutters is it does leave this bit of compressed metal here, and it tends to mess up the threads. So it's a little bit hard to get that nut on there. So we're going to clean that up now. You can use a file, sandpaper, whatever, but all we're going to do is just file off some of the rough edges. And you can stick this in the drill and actually turn it, make it a little quicker if you want to. But we're going to clean up each of these so that we have no problem getting the nut and the washer on there. Okay, so what we've done, we've finished off each of the ends. We've got our threaded rod lined up. And one of the other nice things about threaded rod is it's very bendable, and it's pliable. It's pretty soft metal, but it's still strong. Like I said early on, I don't like getting up in the attic any more than I have to, and so a lot of times you can bend these enough right here. And if you need to bend them this much at this point to slide them up in, it's fine. You can bend them. I'll just bend the threaded rod enough to get it to go up. Then once it's up, put it across, and then I'll bend it back. We've run into a little bit of problem. This happens just like a regular installation. This second support actually interferes with the piece of wafer board that is supporting the back half of the ceiling. And so what we opted to do is just show you that you can use this. You could stick it up there. You could put it on top of that support. You could cut the support away. But because of where the support's at, we decided to just show you, we drill holes in the support and show you how to install these from underneath. I drilled the same size holes here, and what I'll do is I'll just reach up there. Now, one of the nicest things, again, about threaded rod is that the holes don't have to be perfect. These are a little bit off, but to move it out here where the support is will work out really well for us. I'm going to put each of the threaded rods through. And one of the things you can do with the threaded rod with this method is you can use a series of double nuts. That's where you put the washer and the nut on the top and bottom and you pinch the item in there. With this method, once we start screwing these up, because we didn't use double nuts, it's going to bow this sheetrock, but we're going to put supports in there that are going to prevent that because we want the strongest, most stable mounting method possible. We're mounting this as if the hood weighed 200 or 300 pounds. On some of the lighter hoods, if you use a double nut method, if you were to pretend that that were up in the attic and this were here, and then you put a nut on this end, you sandwich those together and you tighten them up really tight. And then what that does is that supports the upper portion, and then for the lower portion, you do the same thing once you hit the bracket. So you'd put some nuts up, and then you'd install the bracket, and then that gives you a little bit of adjustment. But essentially, the threaded rod is what you're relying on for your support there, and the double nut method allows you to cinch up the bracket as tight as you want without bowing the sheetrock. Okay, so we've installed our bracket, we've installed our 4 pieces of threaded rod, and we're getting ready to tighten it up. Now, once again, the nicest part about this is that you have some adjustment. So we want to center this up, make sure our points are right where we need them to be. Okay, we've mounted our bracket. We've got our bracket position exactly where we're going to need it. Now what I'm going to show you is the way that we're going to put the blocking in. Now for this, what we need to do is just make sure that we take up the space between our 2x4 support at the top and our sheetrock and our plate at the bottom. The way that we're going to do that is use a vertical 2x4. So we drilled some holes on the side here for a grabber screw. And what I would recommend too is some construction adhesive top and bottom. In fact, construction adhesive is never a bad idea because once it's up there, it sets up. You're going to have this hood in place for a long time. That vibration over time can loosen up some of the nuts and bolts, maybe some fasteners, but construction adhesive is always a good idea. So a little construction adhesive here on the bottom. But what I do is I slide this in this way, keep it perpendicular, and I line it up so that my screw can hit it from the bottom. You know, if you do have access from the top, you can go up and put some more fasteners in. Everywhere we have compression, everywhere we tighten these up and screw these down, we're going to need that support to block us down and transfer the weight. If they start out, they don't have to be perfectly straight. You can adjust them here a little bit in just a second. But what we'll do is take a wrench and we'll start to tighten these. Okay, so there you have it. We've tightened this down pretty tight. You can see that there's no play in that. Now what we're going to do, we've double checked our measurement. We've made sure our controls are at the front. We've made sure that we're straight along the back. So now we're going to just screw in the grabber screws that we put to. Okay, so there you have it. This is the most straightforward, simplest way. Gives you the most adjustment, and it's also very, very strong. We'll do the official test here. You know, I weigh 240 pounds, and you know, I can hang here on it without any problem. So there's plenty of support there. You're not going to get any vibration. Like we said, once your construction adhesive sets up, you won't have any problem for years to come.
With limited access to the area above your range hood, the weight of your appliance will largely determine the type of additional ceiling support you will wish to use to install your range hood. For hoods weighing approximately 50 pounds or less, you may use the 2x4 joist installation. For heavier hoods weighing more than 50 pounds, you will want to use the TJI joist installation. This section of the video will cover situations with limited access to the ceiling area above their range hood that are using a TJI joist system. Remember that any additional ceiling support must be able to hold 3 times the weight of your range hood.
Now we're going to show you how to do something if you either don't have access or if you have a very heavy hood, maybe over 150 pounds, or you have a long distance to span. Now these joists, as you recall, we put those on 2-foot centers, and that's generally about the largest span you'll have. But occasionally, for some reason, like let's say for example we're on an angle, we need a longer block. This is the method that we advise that you use. So for this method, the idea is that we're basically going to make something that's just about this shape to go this way, so that we can block this in properly, so that these stay straight. Now we're going to do this exactly as if we had a floor above this with no access, and this is going to be perpendicular to these joists. What you do is you'd look up through the hole, up through your access hole with a flashlight, tape measure, and then you're going to come up with this measurement right here. And it's important to us, we want to use this space. Now if you don't have this type of construction, let's say that you have a 2x12, you can always reach up there with a piece of 2x4, and you can glue the 2x4 to your 2x12 or whatever your floor joist is. And then once you've done that, you can screw it. So you'd use some construction adhesive, some glue, and you'd create kind of that same lip for you to mount your bracket on. So we're going to show you 2 different ways to do that right now. So what we've done is we've taken a piece of plywood and we've ripped it down to the same height. So you can see that once we put this bracket up in there, we're going to have a little play, but that's perfect. That's the way we want it. And this will sit right here. So now what we're going to do to shim this on the top and the bottom is we're then going to glue and screw a 2x4 to the bottom. Now what this does is it gives us a large area of very solid, stable wood to anchor to and screw to for our chimney mounting bracket. And then at the same time, it gives us support across the entire length of the span. So then what I like to do, just because once we get this up there, it's going to be really hard to twist it into place, and we're showing you this on the outside right now because it's much easier to explain this way. What I'll typically do is I'll make 2 shims. I've measured this distance from here to here, and I'll call this a shim. It's a piece of the same plywood that we used for the center, and it's going to sit right on the bottom. So when I mount this 2x4, so the way that this is going to sit is that we're going to push this in after, and it's going to take up that final bit of gap. So this is going to sit right here. The 2x4 is going to sit right here, and we're going to push this in after with a bunch of construction adhesive right here, and then we're going to screw up through the bottom with our plate. So that'll give us a very strong, very stable support that will hold just about any weight of hood that we want to put on it. Now one of the things to consider when using this method is, let's pretend that we had a 6-inch or an 8-inch or maybe even a bigger piece of ductwork right here, right here. It does present a little bit of a problem, makes things a little bit more difficult. So, but you can, with these, you can cut a section out of this and it still maintains a lot of the strength. And so you'd use one of these on the front, one of them on the back. The other thing that's nice about this method is, let's say that you do have that big area to span and you need to come up with another support off of this beam. This lets you do it because this is plenty strong. You can actually tie in another support that runs away from this to attach your chimney to. Okay, now we've made our support. The support's going to go in here. Now if you recall, our hole is 12 inches across. Problem is the height of our joists are 12 inches, so we need to fit this through a 12-inch hole. So one of the things that you can do is you can allow for a shim. Now we've just used a piece of 7/16 wafer board. You would use some construction adhesive and a couple of 2x4s. Give you plenty of area to screw into right here. So this is our top, this is our bottom, and we'll just, for right now, we'll show you how this is going to go together once we get up in there. Okay, now you can see the strength that you're going to have there. You're going to be completely flush here, completely flush here. There's no chance for these to bow or twist, and this is going to give us plenty of support. Not only are we going to have the support of this 2x4, we're also going to have, because it's going to be glued to the plywood and also glued to this, we're going to have the support of the entire assembly there. Now the nicest thing about this too is that, let's say that we want to install it this way. Before you install this, you can actually go up inside and you can mount a 2x4 here. So you could reach up through the hole, you could have this trimmed, you could glue it right here, you could put a couple of screws in there, and then you could come back and you could glue and screw from the back side up through the hole. So again, what we're trying to do is do everything through our access hole so that we don't have any paint work. Let's say that you had an island on a 45-degree angle, and let's say that this was the front of your stove. This support would need to be pretty long. It would need to be out in here. This is the type of support you need. If you had a 48, a 54, a 60-inch hood, this is the perfect kind of support for you. Now once we get this in there, we made it short intentionally. Now we made it a 1/2 inch short here and a 1/2 inch short on top, because what we're going to do, that gives us room to get it up through the hole. That makes it only 11 inches tall. It goes through our 12-inch hole, and then it also makes it easier to maneuver once it's in there with the glue. Then what we do is we slide the shim underneath it, and then we screw on a couple points, and you'll see it's a really slick, effective way to do this and to install this. We've got to get an 11-inch spacer up through a 12-inch hole. Now we do have a little bit more space here, and this is one of the smaller chimneys. If we had a larger chimney a larger area, maybe one of the big 48, 60-inch rectangle chimneys, we'd have a lot more space to work with, but we wanted to use this to show you how effective this method is. Okay, what we've decided to do, one of the great things about being able to film this is that what we've decided to do is put some blocks in to show you the strongest, best way to do this. So what I'm going to do, I've cut these to the exact size that we're going to need to install on the sides. We're going to install these in the back and we're going to show you. And then our support will come right into the side like this, and then we'll screw it to it. And it's the strongest way, it's the strongest, best way. What that will do is it will transfer the weight. In our other method, with just this spacer sitting there, our weight rests on the bottom of this and it relies on the glue joint here in the TJI. But by putting a block in there, we transfer all of that weight, all of that force, to the entire structure of our beam. So this is what you'd want to do if you had a real heavy hood along a long span, or just wanted to make sure you had the absolute best blocking and spacing possible. The way that I'll do these normally, oops, sorry. So I'll run the screw all the way through, just because I'm going to have glue on the other side. And I don't want there to be any, I want it to be as easy as possible. Get another one that size. We have to do everything up through the hole because we're pretending that we have a floor above us. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use construction adhesive on the back here, and then we're going to screw these into the side so that we can mount our heavy-duty support to the front. I've used a tape measure. I calculated how far I need to be, and it's 17 inches. So I'm going to measure that off. Then I'm going to use a square to draw a line that I measure to. And this is how I'll set my line. Okay, so now we're not going to use construction adhesive for this example, but you would want to use some construction adhesive there. So we're going to set the block in place, even with the face of our line. Now making sure that we're lined up with our line. With our blocks in place, what we're going to do is we're going to position this, put it in place. Now again, you'd want to put some construction adhesive here and here so that when we do slide our shims in, our spacers in, we've got plenty of construction adhesive. So now we're going to want, this is the bottom, and we're going to want to attach to our side 2x4s on this side. So we'd want to put some construction adhesive in the corners up here first, and then slide it in, bring it back. Now you want to rotate it up, and you can see that's perfect. Now what we'd want to do, I've got my shim pieces here, and I've installed some screws to make them easier to handle. You can use those or not, it doesn't really matter. I want to put construction adhesive on both sides, then I'll hold it with my screws. So then what I'd do is I'd have it set just like that, put it in, and raise my level up just a little bit. Okay, so now you'd want to use some grabber screws and come up here in the corner where your blocking is. Now remember, you've got plenty of construction adhesive on those, and you can see that that is very strong. And not only do you have two 2x4s, but you also have the strength of that plywood vertically, which is just like the joist. Now again, here we're going to give you the test. You know, once again, I'm 220 pounds and it has no problem holding me. Now of course, the method that we've shown you right here is just one of the supports. You'd need to do another one. So you'd do everything twice and you'd put the other one right here. And using that, you would pick up all 4 of your support points very easy.
This section of the video will cover situations with limited access to the ceiling area above the range hood that are using a 2x4 joist system. Remember that any additional ceiling support must be able to hold 3 times the weight of your range hood.
Now this is the last method that we're going to show you to reinforce your ceiling to support the weight of your new island range hood. Now this is a method that can be used either if you have the attic space above or if you don't. But what we've done here is we've gone up through our 12-inch hole, we've looked at what we have to work with, and we've cut a spacer that will go between both of our TJIs. So you can see we've notched out so that this gives us the depth here, and it will span the space, and it will transfer the weight from the sheetrock and from the mounting points to the side to our joists. Now, there's a couple advantages to this method. It's really fast, it's very easy. It's a small piece of wood, it's easy to get up in there, it's easy to work with. Some of the disadvantages. Okay, if you don't have this style of construction, if you don't have an engineered truss, then you're going to have to put a 2x4, or a lot of times what I'll do is I'll rip a 2x4, or I'll actually use the entire 2x4 and I'll just glue it. Then I have to use a 2x6 or a 2x8 on top because I don't have enough support on top to rest the top piece on, or I have to use a larger spacer. You can decide what's best in your situation. A lot of times though, what I'll do is I'll just rip a 2x4 all the way down and have it about 3 feet long, 2 feet long. I'll put it up in the attic, I'll glue it to the side, glue it to both sides, and then I'll build something that's exactly like this. Like I said, the nice thing about this, these are simple, these are small, they're easy to fit up in the attic. These are best if you have 16 to 18 inch spacing. 24, it will still work. It's also good if your hood weighs less than 60 to 70 pounds. So if you've got a 24 or a 36 inch hood and the total weight is 40 or 50 pounds, this is fine. This is perfect. This is the way you're going to need to do it. So what I would recommend is that once you've calculated your cuts here and you've test fit it, and you've calculated where you need your support points, then you're going to use some construction adhesive like in all of these methods. All right, with our support, we know that this side is going to be the front. So before we put in glue on this end, what we want to do is just drill a couple of holes. The reason we want to drill them is because if we try and screw that on an angle like that, it's going to split. This makes it real easy, and you know that the screw is going to come out in the right spot. Okay, so there. Now, using this method, we'll have a really, we'll use the screws and the glue, plus we have the ledge where we'll use plenty of glue there. So between the mechanical fasteners and the glue and the ledge, we've got a really great, quick system that's easy to get up in the attic. And like I said, for lighter hoods or shorter spacing, this is perfect, and this is all you need to do. Now, we used a 2x4 here. 2x6 works just as good. A lot of people have 2x6 roof framing, and so if you have a 2x6 roof framing, use a 2x4. That extra space is going to make it a lot easier for you. So at this point, what we do is we would install a lot of construction adhesive. You'd want to put the construction adhesive here, along the entire bottom, and then here. Okay, so once we're up in place and we've got our construction adhesive, we'd want to set our left side where we needed it. And then we'd want to kind of pound in our right side and then just make sure it's exactly where we need it. And it's flush. And then I can see our screw. So there you have it. This is the fastest, easiest method. It's great for the hoods that are less than about 80 pounds, 70 pounds. And you can see that it goes in quick, takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of cutting, and if you don't have the engineered trusses, you're going to have to put a cleat there on the bottom and glue that. But once you do that, it works great, gives you plenty of good, solid material to anchor your hood to. And then we'll do our 220-pound test here. You can see that I can still hang on that, no problem. So that's a 2x4 on the truss joists. And there you have it. That's the way that you can install or reinforce for your island range hood. Make sure that you don't have any problem now or down the road. So there you have it. Those are the 3 most common methods that we use to install island range hoods. Each of them a little bit different. You can take your particular island hood and using this video, using some of the tips we've given you, you can adapt any of these methods to fit your needs. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on this video. Give us a call on our 800 number, or you can drop us an email from our website. Thanks for watching.